Oh, I should have told Lila everything from the start. I should have trusted her. What a foolish old man I am. Yes, said Shellac. Still, never mind. We'll find her. Come on, Hamlet. And they set off. Lao Chan stood watching them for a minute until they disappeared into the dark streets. But someone was watching Lao Chan. One of the slaves who'd come to play Elephant's Footsteps was hiding under a bush nearby, and as soon as he realised what he'd seen, he began to tremble. Helping the white elephant to escape was a terrible crime. There'd be a terrible punishment, and there might be a great reward for the person who pointed out the criminal. So when Lao Chan began to trudge homewards, the slaves silently followed him to find out who he was and where he lived. Chulac and Hamlet walked all night, and when the morning came, they slept in a little valley under some thick trees. They woke up in the afternoon, and while Hamlet browsed on the leaves, Chulac went to the nearest village to ask the way to the Emerald Lake. He came back with an armful of bananas and some news. Guess what, Hamlet? We're in luck. This is the night of the full moon. The water goddess comes out of the lake and grants people's wishes. Couldn't be better, my boy. Finish your leaves. Let's get moving. They weren't the only people going to the Emerald Lake. The jungle paths were busy with families carrying picnics, and even a troop of monkeys was heading in the same direction. Just before the sunset, Chulac and Hamlet saw a young man busily pinning an upper notice on the trees beside the path. Chulac was about to read one when the young man caught sight of him. Hey, I know you, he said. And him? We know lots of people, said Chulac. Is this the right way to the Emerald Lake? Just along here. Here, can I? The young man looked bashful. Chulac knew what he wanted. Kneel down, Hamlet, he said. Customer. Hamlet couldn't say anything with the young man there, but he gave Chulac a severe look as he knelt down. The young man daubed something on Hamlet's side with a stick and some mud and gave Chulac a coin. Thanks, he said. Wait till I tell the boss. And he ran off. Chulac read what was written. Eat at Rambashi's Jungle Grill. Rambashi, Chulac said. I've got an uncle Rambashi. He used to be a chicken farmer. The notices on the trees were advertised in the Jungle Grill as well. It was opening that very night, and there were meals at half price if you bought in a voucher from one of the notices. It'll be nice to see Uncle Rambashi again, Chulac said. Come on, it'll be dark in a minute. They hurried on. Soon they came out on the shores of the Emerald Lake. Under the trees, at the edge of the water, there stood some houses on stilts, with cooking fires and coloured lanterns, and as the tropical darkness covered the sky in less than 5 minutes, Chulac and Hamlet entered the village. Naturally, a white elephant with an advertisement written on it caused a sensation, and soon Chulac and Hamlet were followed by a crowd of excited children and some older people with nothing else to do. Even the troop of dancers getting into their costumes for the ceremony couldn't resist, and the dancing mistress had to run after him with her mouth full of safety pins to pull him back and scold him. Which way is to Rambashi's Jungle Grill? Chulac asked, and someone pointed along the shore to where a wooden building stood on stilts over the water. There was a terrace with coloured flags and tables with checkered tablecloths and lamps made out of wine bottles, and a cloud of smoke was coming out from the kitchen, with the sounds of sizzling and bubbling and the smell of grilling meat and fish and spices. Just in time, Hamlet. What do you think of that? And that's Uncle Rambashi, said Chulac. Rambashi, wearing a white apron over his tartan sarong, was ushering some customers onto the terrace when he saw Chulac. Chulac, my boy, how delightful to see you. And your friend, your pet, this excellent mobile advertising billboard. Come in, dear boy. Voucher? Oh, don't bother with that. Free food for everyone in honour of the ceremony of the full moon. Of course, I'll lose money on it, but we'll soon make it up. Wonderful publicity. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, free meals tonight. What about us? Said a waiter. When do we get our supper? Customers first, said Rambashi. You and the boys can have as much as you like later on. I thought you were going into the chicken business, said Chulac, tucking into a big plate of prawns and rice in satay sauce. Yes, but I had to give that up. I felt sorry for the hens, Chulac. So we took to the transport business for a while. River taxi, you know, with some freelance work on the side. But then came the opportunity to invest in the restaurant trade, where my talents truly lie, Chulac. Yes, madam, our grilled lake trout is exquisite tonight. May I offer you some saffron rice to accompany it, and a flask of jasmine wine? Yes, all free, no charge, compliments of the house. The Jungle Grill was certainly doing good business, or it would have been if Rambashi had been charging for it. I hope he knows what he's doing, Hamlet, Chulak said as the elephant browsed quietly on the banyan tree that spread over the terrace. He reckons it'll be such good publicity that they'll come back when he starts charging. I'm not so sure. Still, the food's good, smoky, but tasty. Rambashi's cook was having trouble with the grill, which he kept having to throw water over when it got too hot. Clouds of smoke and steam kept billowing out, and the waiters rushed to and fro with full plates and dirty plates and flasks of wine and menus and coconuts full of ice cream. Meanwhile, the elders were preparing the lakeshore for the full moon ceremony. Chulak and Hamlet, full of supper, wandered along to have a look. The sand that swept and smoothed, lanterns were hung in the trees, and blossoms of all colours were scattered on the water. The path from the temple to the lake was crowded several deep on either side, and Chulak had to climb on Hamlet's back in order to see. Then the ceremony began. A great drum sounded 3 times, and an orchestra began to play. Gongs and xylophones and drums and cymbals and flutes. A line of dancers came out of the temple and swayed down the path towards the lake, their fingernails snapping and flicking like fireflies in their golden skirts shimmering in the lantern light. The headman of the village struck a light and lit the scented candle in a paper boat, which he floated into the lake. The incense made the air sweet and rich. Very soon, other paper boats were floating out to join it, and then a little child pointed at the treetop on the far of the dark lake and said, "Moon!" The moon was rising, and as it rose, the music rose too. The gongs, the xylophones, and the cymbals all summoning the goddess from the lake. And then there she was, though no one had seen her arrive. It was as if she'd come when they were looking away, and when they looked back, they saw her, though no one had really looked away. She was floating to the shore on a raft of water lilies, a beautiful lady in the robe the colour of the moon, with silver rings and amulets and a necklace of jasmine flower. One after another, the villagers bowed to her and asked her to help. This woman for a sick child, that man for a good harvest, these lovers for a blessing on their marriage. The goddess rebuked some of them asking too much, though she never refused anyone in need. When they had all finished and the goddess was about to depart, Chulak gathered his wits and shook his head because he was a little dazzled by her beauty, and he thrust his way to the water's edge and knelt down. "Goddess," he said, "please hear me too." But before the goddess could answer, Hans took him roughly and hauled him away. "What are you doing, stranger? Away with him, defiling the lake. Who is he? Who gave him permission? Stone him, turn him out." Chulak struggled. He could see Hamlet rising his trunk and shifting his feet, and he knew the elephant was getting angry. "No," he cried. "Listen, I've got a special request. Let me just ask the goddess." The high priest looked down, frowning. His face was a shadow and stern. "How dare you come to this sacred place?" he said. "The goddess of the lake is not to be disturbed by your frivolous requests. Take him away. No, she shall not hear you. Be thankful we let you go with your life. Take him to the village boundary, and if he comes back, kill him."